It is Wednesday, July 15th, 2015, and this is your absolute last Radio Tokyo midweek update. Uh, why am I saying it's the last one? Well, honestly, it's because, truthfully, it is far easier for me to just do a, uh, a video, or uh, a little broadcast like this to address whatever topic that I want to do, then try and segment everything. And I happened to notice that yesterday, um, when I did the Comic Con update thing. Um, it's just a lot easier to do it this way. Uh, so I hope it works out, and I hope all of you are okay with that, and you can not hate me too badly for that. But um, first off today, I wanted to discuss a little something that I have actually not put on Facebook just yet. But as many of you know, there was World of Warcraft footage shown at Comic Con this past weekend. Um, it will actually not be made public except for the fly through video that I discussed, where you're on Griffin back and you're seeing Stormwind from the air. That's been released. It is fisheye version, so that means it's a lot longer, uh, but it's going to be a little strange to look to see it. But um, the actual footage will not be released until November. There will be, no official trailer until November, and basically what it seems that's happening is that Blizzard wants to excuse me, wants to time everything with BlizzCon. So we're going to have to wait for a little bit and see. Um, Secondly, actually, it was yesterday this happened. I wasn't aware of it this morning, though. But the latest trailer for the Fantastic Four was released. And that's actually what's going to lead us into what I wanted to talk about today. Um, a couple times on the show, Nick and I, or Nick, Danny, and I have discussed um, the relevance to comics and the real world. Like, for example, Marvel Civil War is about stuff like the Patriot Act. And I believe I mentioned that the X-Men are often used as allegories for certain topics. Um, the X-Men, of course, were created during the Civil Rights era, and it's been pretty much established uh, after the fact that they were actually an allegory for the Civil Rights movement. You can go back and look at uh, the storylines they had. You had the Trask Corporation, Oliver Trask, telling individuals, mutants need to be hunted down. And that's basically McCarthyism, trying to find communists and trying to find people who are hidden out. Um, then you have the government legislation saying, mutants are not equal. They need to be separated from us. And if you look at what was going on in the 60s, I mean, we had just come, out of World War II. The Cold War was heating up, and that's why I mentioned Joseph McCarthy a few minutes ago. Um, the idea that there are certain portions of society which do not need to intermingle is very prevalent, and Marvel has actually done nothing to hide that, and they're in fact acknowledging it almost. They put, like I said, several references in there to where you can look at what's been said and get the idea. Hey, this is what's going on in our stories. But the X-Men have been one of the longest standing versions of that idea that what's going on in comics is actually relevant to society. Excuse me again. Um, as the civil rights era ended, and things started, in the world began to change. Around the time you reach, the 80s or so, which is when which is when one of the major restarts of both the Marvel and DC universes took place. We were dealing with the AIDS crisis, the idea that gay people are causing a disease. Oh my goodness! Oh no, it's a horrible disease. And now, please understand, I'm not trying to make light of AIDS or HIV, and I'm not trying to insult members of the LGBT community. What I'm saying is that that was a real world issue, and Ronald Reagan was referenced several times in the comics. You know what was going on in real life always shows up. It's not as I've seen suggested. Actually, I saw it. I even saw it suggested this morning. What it is not some underlying uh, agenda or anything. It's just the comic writers are trying to make the stories relatable. And what happened was you noticed a shift in the X Men. Um, they've always represented, from their, from the word go, they're extra individuals. They're different. But that's the same with a lot of comic characters. But it's actually a little more heavy-handed in Marvel's universe than it is the DC universe. Um, but like I was saying, around the '80s, uh, the X-Men were viewable as being, members of the LGBT community, and that's gone on and on and on and on, for the past nearly 30 years. Except now, uh, it's possible that they no longer represent that. It's possible that the X-Men actually represent, as Daryl Ayo said, that they actually represent people who want to own guns, and that's only uh, post Civil War storyline that has become a possibility. Now, they're back to being viewed as different. They're people that have these extreme powers, and they could possibly destroy the world. I mean, that's the way that a lot of comic characters are being viewed now. Um, so it's possible, like that's that's a real world issue now. We have mass shootings and terrorism and stuff like that now. And like I said, this all stems, as far as Marvel goes, from that Civil War storyline. Um, on the DC side, it's a little bit different. DC has, as far as long as I can remember, past couple of decades now, they have not really made an effort to hide the fact that, particularly the Justice League, actually represent um, a different type of mythology altogether. Everyone seems to be able to acknowledge, that comic book characters represent, like it's our version of God. It's our version of um, different religions from the past. They're heroes. They're here. They're powerful. They're stronger than us. And it actually all began with Superman, because he's the first superhuman. But he came. We actually discussed this on, I believe it was the Death of Superman episode, where we did, we discussed. Or I actually mentioned that Superman is an allegory for Jesus. But what he is, if you look at the historical perspective, he's uh, because he came about at the time that the Nazis were going everywhere and doing their crazy things. He's sort of a vague reference to Friedrich Nietzsche's Übermensch, which is Superman, the Overman, which Superman, duh. But as time has progressed, we've gotten more heroes added to this genre. This mythos. What we have now is an established set of characters that are in the Justice League, and again, Marvel has made continual references to these being the Greco-Roman pantheon. Uh, Superman is, he's the leader. He's almost unquestionably the most powerful of them. He's Zeus. Wonder Woman is Hera. Batman is Hades. The Flash is I just forgot. I'm sorry. Not Mercury, but he's another individual. But you have all these characters that represent these different aspects. And if you look at them and you look the way that they're currently treated and the way they've been treated in the past, you can see it. Um, it's been a common theme. Like I said, Batman, represents the underworld. Uh, as far as Gotham goes, that might actually be hell. Uh, now, if you look at the way Gotham's set up, there's Blackgate Prison and there is Arkham Asylum, and all the inmates there are crazy, powerful individuals. Emphasis on the crazy. They're all. There's been theory for years now that every character at least in Gotham, actually represents some kind of um, mental instability. Bruce Wayne clearly would be post-traumatic stress and maybe schizophrenia. The Joker, we don't really know what the Joker would be, but we know he has problems. But if you look at all the Batman villains, they all seem to have, in some way, at the very least, uh, post-traumatic stress issues. But that's been thought to be what all of Gotham actually is just one big group of crazy people living together in one area. And that's why I'm saying, with Batman, being Hades, being the devil, whatever term you want to give to this type of character, um, he's the guardian of all that. He takes care of all of that, you know, and it's really interesting to look at that, to look at it from that perspective. Um, but there's also the idea that Batman is actually, not Batman, and Gotham is not real anymore, and that Bruce Wayne, as a child, witnessing the murder of his parents, has actually snapped, and he is, actually in someplace. And it's an idea that's been compared to not Alice in Wonderland. I'm sorry, Wizard. Well, yeah, actually, Alice in Wonderland to some extent, but more so the Wizard of Oz. In the movies uh, and in the book, no, actually, just in the movies. When you see uh, the real people talking to Dorothy, you know, oh, she's fallen and hurt her head. But yet everyone in Oz seems to represent someone she knows. And this was carried over into the sequel, Return to Oz in the 80s, with Veruza Balk playing Dorothy, where you see, she keeps having, uh, she keeps discussing what it was she saw in Oz, and she can't let it go. And so her family decides to send her to an asylum, and everything she sees in the asylum then becomes something you see in Oz. This was also done with, I just forgot the name of it. I'm sorry, I apologize, but it was a character, uh, baby doll, and she has the pigtails and everything. Uh, that's actually her getting a lobotomy. Everything she sees in this, in this reality, is a result of something going on in her mind, and it's actually kind of scary to think about that. But it's a possibility. Um, but again, there's just little hidden things that if you look for, you'll see them. Uh, I read a while back that the Green Lantern is actually supposed to represent hippies. Uh, now, this is actually not me, stretching here. This is me setting actual things that are in line. You have one of the earlier lanterns, one of the earlier human lanterns, uh, who decided. Actually, no. Let me rephrase all this. Green Lantern actually represents a lot of different issues. A lot of different issues. One of the earlier lanterns has come out as being one of the first openly gay members of the DC universe. Um, then you have uh, I just forgot his name. John Stewart. John Stewart. I'm sorry. The Black Lantern. Um, he refused to actually hide his identity, and the reason he refused to hide his identity is possibly because he's black. He wanted everyone to acknowledge who he is. He's a powerful man. And that was something. Because he came around around the civil rights era as well, or in the very tail end of it. But it's possible that he wanted everyone to acknowledge who he was. But now, that the DC universe has been restarted as well. You look back at it, and the established idea now is that the Green Lantern as a whole uh, represents hippies. The movement from the '60s and onwards. Um, the Green Lantern Corps are peacekeepers, and they wear green, and they go around preserving things and trying to protect people. Like that's the whole function of the Green Lantern Corps, is to preserve portions of the galaxy, or the galaxies rather, from being destroyed. They don't want things to take place. They wear green. They're all about peace. Green peace. That's effectively what the Green Lantern Corps is now. And again, none of what I'm mentioning is some part of some kind of agenda. It's um, stuff that's just being put in there that people are noticing. But I noticed a friend, actually a real life friend of mine this morning, said something about the Fantastic Four trailer, which is why I mentioned it at the beginning, which is what it got me on to doing this episode right here. Um, he does not like the changes. He thinks that the stories need to remain the same. Everything needs to be what they used to be. And I've been saying, since I saw this, like in comments back and forth on Facebook about it, things change, society changes, stories change, and with the reboots and restarts of comic series, what you're going to get is some changes. The same artists who do, for example, the X-Men now are not the ones doing it in the '60s, and the ones doing it now will not be the ones doing it 40 years from now. Things are going to change. The only common string, at least for Marvel, is Stan Lee. And my friend's argument was, none of this has anything to do with Stan Lee. And I said, if you're talking about Marvel, yes, it has everything to do with Stan Lee. Um, he hasn't made a secret about believing that there are individuals out there who have, special abilities, who are different from everyone else. It's not, like the reverse idea, you know, like you see represented in the comics, that these individual people need to be suppressed, that they need to be grouped together, that they need to be destroyed, that they need to be cataloged. No, it's not that. Stan Lee has embraced it. He freely acknowledges that these people may be the future of mankind, and that's something that's been brought up as well. Uh, that idea even extends beyond comic books. In the original Mobile Suit Gundam series, you had the idea of the new type, and the new type is an individual who's born in space. They were never burdened by gravity. They were never, they never had to deal with politics here on the planet. All these problems, that um, the way it was expressed in the series was that their thoughts are never weighed down by gravity. They're not tied to Earth. They're free to think. They're out. They're born in the colonies in space, and they're free from everything we have here, all the problems and issues we have here on Earth. And it's an interesting idea to think about that eventually, the more progressive mankind gets, the more we go out into space, the more new types show up. And as Gundam goes along, you see that. You see more and more and more new types until eventually everyone is either born a new type or they have evolved to become a new type. And I'm talking, just a span of 20, 30 years chronologically. Everyone who was effectively an old type is just about dead. But you see this in the comics. And the more, these stories are being told, the more and more superheroes you're going to see added. These individuals who have all these distinct abilities that separate them they're going to become more prevalent, and eventually the people who are there are going to just the people who have not adapted to this new society are going to be left out. Eventually, Earth will be home to nothing but superpowered individuals, individuals who are different, who have embraced who they are. And the most important thing I think that anyone can take away from these stories, these ideas, there are people out there who are better than you. They have some special skill that you can look up to and admire. It's like everyone wants to be Batman. Every kid wants to be Superman, and so on. We all look at these characters and we take aspects, very important aspects away from this, which is why I mentioned earlier the idea that that comic books are effectively a new religion. They're individuals that a normal person can look at and say, "Hey, I like that. That person is strong. They're super smart. Whatever." And um, you can alter your life away from that, and that's what's important about all these stories. They're about that change. They're about growing up and accepting, you can do better. Like uh, Spider-Man, for example, and this is something that I think Nick would even agree with me on. The idea, with great power comes great responsibility. That's a common thread for nearly every hero altogether. They all have these amazing powers and whatnot, and they have to become responsible with them. But that's really how the world works now. Everyone is special. Everyone's unique. You're unique in your own individual way. And now, whether you're part of a group or you're a complete loner, it doesn't really matter. There's always someone out there you'll be able to connect with in some way. So, you know, what I'm getting at is if you're different, whether you're gay, you're lesbian, transgender, you're male, female, you're black, white, blue, purple, whatever, whether you speak 15 languages, you're a bodybuilder, you're a little nerd who gets pushed into lockers, whatever, be who you are and be proud of who you are. Because you know, if you're not, then society goes nowhere. And if you're one of the individuals who can't accept that change, I'm sorry. You know, Society has progressed, and either you're going to adapt or you're going to be left behind, being angry and sad and miserable. So, if nothing else, take that out of what I've discussed today. But anyway, that will be it for now. I'm going to get busy on doing the rest of the walkthrough videos. I know I need to finish the Death Knight area. I'm about 2/3 of the way done, I believe. I'm going to get back to doing more live streaming on the Iron Man challenge. Um, I kind of purposely skipped working on that because of the holidays events that's been going on. I did not really want to tempt myself with doing specifically Midsummer because you can get the buff that helps you level faster. I didn't really want to do that, even though it probably would have been cool and all to go around and get the flyers, for the extra XP. I didn't really want to risk that. So now that that's over with and there's nothing coming up that I can think of off the top of my head, I'm going to get back to doing that. But anyway, our Friday show is coming up. It's going to be really, really interesting. Again, Danny will not be on the show. She will not be here for at least 2 weeks. So it's going to be Nick and myself. But yes, this is the last actual official midweek update. And it's been a hell of a lot longer than they normally have been. But it's just easier to do it this way. So, also, hey, did you like the new intro music? I did. It's actually kind of hard for me, just to not let that play all the way through because it's a fantastic song. But the link for that is in the description if you want to go listen to the full song. It's done by the same person who does the normal episode music for us. Anyway, that's it. It really is. I promise. Remember to look us up on Facebook and remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will talk to all of you very, very, very soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.